Hi, this is Dan Whitney with the Whitney Law Firm in Towson, Maryland. Today we're going to talk about the importance of WDI, or as they're commonly called, termite inspections, in connection with the sale of a new house, or the sale of a house. So WDI stands for Wood Destroying Insect Inspection. The rules or the laws vary from state to state as to whether they're mandatory or not, but here in Maryland they are typically not mandatory, although they certainly should be. So, uh, why is a WDI or termite inspection important? Well, of course, the buyer who is potentially going to buy this house needs to know, is there wood destroying insect damage anywhere in this house? Because that can be a huge structural problem that cannot be fixed with some new plywood or some new 2x4s. It can spread all over the house. I've seen it happen many times. And it's always important to get a good company to do a good inspection. Now, I was recently at a house last week doing a termite inspection with a damage expert who's going to help me estimate what the total amount of damage is that we need to get from the negligent inspection company. And it was a very good example of why it's so important that the termite inspection company or the WDI inspection company that is hired needs to be very good at what they do. So in this particular house, a family was considering moving in, and they hired a company to do the WDI inspection. And the inspection was done, and they got a clean bill of health that said there's no damage anywhere, we don't see anything, and of course the buyers relied on that, and they ended up purchasing this house. Now, a few days after moving in, the owner of the house was going downstairs and he saw a little corner at the bottom of the stairs to the right, and it didn't look quite right. It had some what looked like sand coming out of little tiny cracks, and he pushed it, and the wood crumbled, and more of what looked like sawdust came out. So he says, "This doesn't look good," and he starts poking around a little more, and what he ends up finding from that little tiny area is termite damage. He ended up ripping out the drywall in the whole stairwell from the basement up to the first floor, um, ripping out other drywall along the walls in the basement, the ceiling of the basement, under the staircase. Um, and what he ended up discovering, and that I saw last week when I was out there doing the inspection, is that little termite damage, had it been detected by a properly trained pest control technician who was trained to do WDI inspections, had the technician discovered this, he would have had the opportunity, the buyer would have had the opportunity to say, you know what, I see the termite damage, I've done my research, I know that if we see a little bit, it can be everywhere, and you know what, I'm just not going to buy this house. Or he could have said, okay, I see that, but seller, now that we know there's a little bit of damage, I want to have your permission to remove some of the drywall from around this and see how much, if at all, it has spread. Now, some sellers say, okay, fine, but you got to pay for fixing the drywall if you don't buy the house. And others say no. And if somebody says no, you've got to make what I like to refer to as a personal choice and say, are you going to take the risk or not? And either do it or don't. And we'll see what happens. So, what happened here, though, is our client did not get that chance because a negligent WDI was performed that did not detect what it was supposed to detect, which is the termite damage, which is a red flag that, look, I better be very, very careful with my choice next and make sure I know the extent of this damage before I sign this contract for a house that's hundreds of thousands of dollars. And when we were out there at the house, what we saw is from this one little spot, termite damage now is going to require the stairs to be removed and replaced, a sill plate to be removed and replaced, the floors, the floor joists, and the floor in the room above the basement, and it's going to be a tremendous amount of work, which is probably going to total close to $100,000 of damage. Now, what does that mean for our client? It means that he's going to have to stay at a most likely a long-term stay hotel while the work is done. and it's going to be a pretty big hassle. But the bigger question is, how is he going to get the money to pay for this? Because that's a huge amount of money that most people don't have laying around ready to spend on some wretched, unforeseen expense that is termite damage that is the fault of somebody else. So that's where the lawsuit comes in. So what happens is, we are filing a lawsuit against the negligent WDI inspection company, and the lawsuit is going to say, you negligently performed your WDI inspection. Had you performed a reasonable inspection, meaning one that's performed by a trained and experienced pest control technician, you would have detected this termite damage, and had you done that, our client would have been put on notice, and had they been put on notice, they would have been able to make an educated decision and either do further inspection or walk away. But you took that choice. As a result, that damage wasn't found, leading to now all of this damage is something our client is burdened with, but it's really your fault, and now you have to pay for it. And the good news is, in addition to getting that, we will be able to seek our attorney's fees by alleging that this was a bad, the bad inspection was a violation of the Consumer Protection Act for misrepresenting that this was actually a well done inspection instead of representing the truth, which was it was a terrible inspection that no one should have relied on. And the benefit to our client will be they're not going to be paying anything out of pocket, which is how most of our cases work. After our client discovered the damage, he contacted the headquarters of the pest control company that did the WDI, and he actually was informed when he complained, saying, "Look, I found all this damage." The manager said to him, "Oh, well, actually, so-and-so who did that, he's new at this, and he's just figuring out what to do." So because so-and-so is new at this, our client now has this huge mess on his hands. But the good news is we should be able to wrap it up and get him the help he needs. So the whole purpose of this is to convey the point that it's so important for a new home buyer. You've got to make sure you get a trusted company to perform a wood-destroying insect inspection before you buy a property. Hopefully it can curtail or totally cut off the prospect of you buying a house with termite damage or other wood-destroying insect damage. And it's well worth whatever money you should pay for it. You should keep in mind that in life we generally get what we pay for. And if you're paying $15 or $20 for a WDI inspection for a house that you are spending hundreds of thousands on, I personally would say, why don't you find a company that's going to do a very thorough job, pay them more, maybe $80 or $100. They're going to take extra time. They're really going to look carefully, or they should. And that extra $50, $60 may save you over a year and hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of problems down the road. So I hope this has been helpful in conveying the importance of getting a good company to do a WDI. If you have any questions about this, please leave them in the comments. If you have been the unfortunate victim of a bad WDI or termite inspection in Maryland, please feel free to call my office. We offer free consultations. If you would like to see any other videos on the issue of termite damage or WDI inspections or anything related, please leave that in the comments, and I'd be happy to make a video on that if I'm able to. Thank you very much for watching, and I appreciate it. Take care.